Many times when we begin taking a test, and especially the GED test, there are some questions that we read them and they overwhelm us just because the vocabulary seems so difficult. But if we can acquaint ourselves with what those vocabulary words mean, we'll find out that the questions really aren't that difficult. They're things that we knew how to do all along, but maybe the terms threw us off a little bit and scared us. And so the purpose of this video is to take away that level of being frightened of these big words. So here are some words that you should become familiar with before taking the language arts GED test. Okay, so let's begin. Here are some words, and you'll see questions like this. You'll hear the word inferences. Inferences mean it's like detective work, drawing your own conclusions. The story might not tell you this happens, but based on your experiences in hearing about it, you can conclude, you come to your own conclusions, you infer, your inferences, that that's what's going to happen. So here's an example of a question. What inferences can you make about the character through her actions? What that question is asking you is, even though the story might not tell you what kind of person this girl or this woman is, what inferences can you make about her without them telling you, just based on the way she acts? So remember that word inferences, figuring it out for yourself. Okay, another important word to remember is a hypothesis. A hypothesis, you may have heard that in science, that's a prediction. Okay? It's a prediction or a guess that you make about what will happen. So you start to read and you can kind of start to figure ahead of time what's going to happen. So an example might be, after reading the story, what hypotheses can you make about the fate of the character? So maybe the story doesn't go into what happens to the character, but you can pretty much predict, which is make a hypothesis. Okay, next one. Generalization. So generalization, think about that. It's just in general. So those are broad ideas, assumptions that can be made about the characters, their environment, and what's happening. So it may not tell you that, but you just assume that's what's happening, or that's the kind of person they are. So an example question might be, which of the following is a generalization you can make about the community in the story? So it might not tell you about the community, but you can figure it out. You can assume. The question is asking you to make an assumption on the community just on the details that have been told. And this last section is a section I want to spend a little bit more time on. This is called figurative language. So words that say one thing but mean another thing. And we all use these even if you're not aware of them. Okay, so for example here, it says, which of the following is an example of figurative language from the text? So the question is asking you to look for an example of figurative language, and the next page of this presentation will show you what that is. Look at the text and decide which example creates a meaning that's different than the definition. So let's take a look at figurative language. There's 4 types of figurative language. The first one is a metaphor. So a metaphor is when you compare two things that really aren't alike. So here's some quotes. Metaphor. It says, life is a journey, enjoy the ride. And the word after it is just who had said it. But we know that life is not a journey, not a trip. It's comparing it to that, and it's saying it is that, even though we know it's not. So a metaphor, comparing two things that truly aren't alike. Before I met my husband, I'd never fallen in love. I'd stepped in it a few times. Okay, we know that people don't step in love, but it's just a comparison they're making. Life is a zoo. Okay? Maybe it feels like it, but we know it's not literally a zoo. Okay? So another type of figurative language is very, very much like a metaphor. It's called a simile. Same thing, we're comparing two things that aren't alike, but this time we actually put the word like in it or as, and that's called a simile. So we say blind as a bat. Bats are blind, so when a person is blind or having trouble seeing something, we say they're blind as a bat, even though we shouldn't be comparing them to a bat. Okay? So a simile, just like a metaphor, but a simile uses like or as in the comparison. Brave as a lion, like a rock. He ran like the wind. Okay, running in the wind is not the same, but the simile is comparing it so we know that he ran fast. All right, another type of figurative language is personification. So think of the root there, person. Person. It's giving a person, a human, an animal-like characteristics in order to make them appear alive and with feeling. So, excuse me, let me take it back. So personification is taking an object and making them appear human. So for example, the stars danced playfully in the moonlit sky. We know that stars in the sky, don't dance, but we're giving them the idea, the personification that the stars are like a person dancing. Okay. The second one, the run-down house appeared depressed. We know that houses don't become depressed. They don't have emotions, but that's giving an object like a human-like character so that we understand how badly it looks. Okay. The flowers waltzed in the gentle breeze. Again, flowers don't dance, they don't waltz, but we're giving that object human person, okay, a human person, making them appear that way. Personification. So think of that root word in there. And the last type of figurative language here is depiction. A depiction, an example, the author's depiction of the main character can be seen in which of the following statements? That's a typical question. It says the question is asking you to read the statements and decide which one best describes what the author was trying to tell you, their opinion or their description of the character. What were they trying to depict, trying to make you feel or understand? Okay? So those are the 4 types of figurative language. And I am really sorry for the interruption in this video of the phone ringing, but I had gotten so far along and I didn't want to stop it. So I apologize for that. And if you need to, just go back and listen to that again. Fortunately, the words are there and you could look through it. You can turn off the volume and read it yourself. Make some notes. Ask me if you need further clarification. But if you get those vocabulary words down, that really will help you with the questions on the language arts GED, and it takes away that fear factor that you don't know what these big words are. Good luck.